Hi, and welcome to a critical review, a sub-show of a small show where I have to talk about video games seriously, as advised by my solicitor. Do you know how many cease and desist the Vatican sent me for comparing Bubsy to Jesus? None, but I should really prepare for the day. Anyway, faith is redundant now because Epic Dumpster Bear 2 is out. EDB2, as the streets call it, is an action platformer game of 6 to 8 worlds, greatly inspired by those of the 90s as said by the game's official website itself. So Bubsy. Now at a first glance, this game looks like a huge joke, an absolute piss take, although mind you, that's intentional by design. As a direct continuation of the first game, originally released on Wii U, the game starts with a flashback cutscene which immediately sets a humorous tone continued onward from its predecessor. There are many cinematic interludes throughout this journey, by the way, not enough to be overwhelming, but the perfect amount to be genuinely hilarious and hit at every beat. The whole plot of this game is over the top absurd, but somehow still grounded in a logical context that I could believe this happened, yeah. This pulls through to the gameplay too. It looks so goofy, like a digital evolution of vintage puppet shows and arguably rubbish. But that doesn't translate over to the gameplay at all, which stays sharper than a bear's claw. None are sharper than Dumpster Bear's movement, mind you. He's capable of a typical platformer toolkit's double jump and wall jump, and some levels introduce power-ups in the form of bombs. You get a funny little hat and combusting hockey pucks, the young'uns would say it's lit. At all times you also have access to what's essentially a dash. It deals damage, makes you invulnerable for a few seconds, and gives you a boost in any direction. This is a phenomenal addition new to the sequel because it enables so much in terms of movement, which is really fun for exploiting earlier levels, even if you're not saving much time beyond perfecting the intended route, which may come to the dismay of players looking to up the skill ceiling. In addition to an end goal, there's 3 collectible tokens defined in each level which push your grasp of control outside of what the linear start to end route typically demands. I really wish I actually knew what collecting these tokens did, but each time I went out of my way to salvage them, I found myself the most jovial enduring this trivial challenge, so I suppose the fun was enough of a reward to keep going for them, and it gives players who may find themselves frustrated in failing a valid reason to skip the tokens and move on with the main campaign. Now the levels themselves, they're fine, they're fun, although they largely feel like asset clashes without much consideration for object placement, despite being extremely coherent at a glance and smooth to run through, even on a first try. It's an odd juxtaposition considering I didn't really think about this during my playtime. I can't pinpoint a single stage that actually has a bad layout or conflicting visual assets, but it does look very repetitive when you're bear hunting as a spectator sport. But it's a single player game, so why would you? I think the first couple of worlds are definitely carried by the game's comedic factor in this regard, even while utilising the Dulex colour strip for a public restroom. However, as level themes repeat during the late game, it is a bit harder to use the justification of, oh, it's just a joke, you guys. My biggest gripe level-wise is the lack of colour throughout much of the game. Each area is often dark and drab. Story-wise, there is an explanation for this, but when you actually take control of it is a bit boring to look at. The Wii U's installment of the series had a lovely palette of bright and colourful vistas, which relatively retains a much more pleasurable experience on the eyes throughout extended play. This though, this is not my cup of tea, despite looking like one. World 3 is certainly a triumphant standout thanks to its tech-centric themes, brilliantly complemented by a sudden yet comfortable shift from totally linear A to B stages. The dash mechanic's full potential comes through to fruition, level design is greatly expanded upon further than primitive platforming from the side of one axis to the next, and going for bonus collectibles massively ramps up the risk. You can't just run for them haphazardly without being set back if you blunder. Hey, for all I know these levels are spun in a tumble dryer until something which vaguely works came together, but they feel very meticulously built, offering a great variety of slower paced careful platforming in huge momentum rushes. Dumpster Bears can reach speeds higher than Red Bulls at times. It's immensely satisfying to pull this off when you can nail flawless execution on the build-up. Outside of the main campaign, there's a handful of bonus challenges you can unlock at the cost of 100 coins per level. They're generally harder than the main campaign, making them a thrill to play once you've mastered Dumpster Bear's movement mechanics. These extra areas also offer greater incentives for coin collecting, as they otherwise have no real impact on the game's overall completion percentage. The otherwise arbitrary currency can also be used to purchase additional hit points when you restart from a checkpoint, because that's just how prioritised healthcare works, damn it. And then there's the bosses. Just look at them, I don't need to explain this one. Overall, Epic Dumpster Bear 2 He Who Bears Wins is an unapologetically hilarious platformer, immediately captivating through its comedic setting while being wondrously complemented by its solid platforming. Although it's not necessarily innovative or revolutionary for the genre, it is certainly unique enough to stand strong as its own standalone experience if you're willing to go with the joke. Admittedly, it'll be hard to recall specific level-to-level moments when you're done with the story, but at the price point of a mere £4 or $5 in the States, it's a deal you couldn't bear to miss.